There's Mayor Bill de Blasio. Let's go ahead and listen in.
We had a very serious incident this morning in Lower Manhattan. A crane collapsed along Worth Street between West Broadway and Church. We have one fatality. An individual happened to be sitting in a parked car not associated with the work being done with the crane. We have 3 individuals with injuries, 2 serious, 1 minor, none life-threatening as far as we know at this point. None of the workers who were working on the site were injured in the process. This type of crane is called a crawler crane. It was being moved into a secure position because by the manufacturer's instructions, as winds topped 20 miles an hour, for this particular company, the instructions were that the crane should be put in a secure position if the winds were approaching 25 miles per hour. That is lower than the typical standard for cranes, but for this company, that was their standard. So in fact, they were in the process of securing the crane. They got to the work site this morning at 7, recognized the winds were in the 20-mile-an-hour plus range, and were proceeding to secure the crane, actually to bring it down to a safe and secure position when this incident occurred. Our Department of Buildings personnel had been on the site yesterday to approve the next steps in the work on that building. They had inspected the crane yesterday morning at 6:20 a.m. And reviewed the work that was being done and had approved it. Again, this morning, in fact, no work was done on the site because the crew made the decision immediately to bring the crane down into the secure position, and this incident occurred literally as they were lowering the crane to secure it. We have now some updates on what's being done to secure the area and deal with the aftermath. Obviously, first and foremost, the human effect. Our hearts go out to the families of the individual who's been lost and to all those who have been injured. We're concerned, obviously, for everyone who lives and works in the area to make sure they'll be safe. The immediate concern relates to the fact that there's been gas leaks as a result of this incident. FDNY and Con Ed have been sweeping all the related buildings along Worth Street constantly. So far, they have not detected the type of gas levels that give them additional fear of any further problems, but they are literally sweeping them every 15 minutes to check gas levels. There have not been larger evacuations, only those buildings that have been immediately affected, physically affected by the crane hitting them. The fact is, this is a very, very sad incident. We've lost a life. But if you go out there on the street, as I did, and see what happened here, thank God it was not worse. And in fact, a crew was directing people away from Worth Street as the crane was being lowered. So that crew, those construction workers who, in the normal course of their work, as they were lowering the crane, were in fact keeping people away from the site and keeping traffic from proceeding down West Broadway. That is part of why this situation was not even worse. As I said, FDNY continues sweeping the buildings and securing the situation on the streets, along with Con Ed and Department of Buildings. Con Ed has turned off gas in most of the buildings as a precaution. And they will be able to resolve the gas leak issue by early afternoon, as far as we know at this point. In addition, we should assume for people who live or work along Worth Street between Hudson and Church, that this area is going to be cut off, largely cut off or partially cut off for several days. We'll make every effort to accommodate people. There's going to be larger disruptions in the area between Canal on the south, and Canal on the north, Chambers on the south, Hudson on the west, and Broadway on the east. That box, we're going to see a lot of disruption in the coming hours and probably next few days as issues are resolved and addressed. The number 1 train continues running but is skipping 2 stops in the affected area. So a number of measures have been taken to protect people and make sure that we can focus on the work of addressing the situation and getting things back to normal over the next few days. But it will certainly take several days, certainly no earlier than Monday, possibly longer before we can get things back to normal in these immediate blocks. In addition, we have taken the precaution, even though wind levels have not reached the level that normally would lead to a larger shutdown of cranes around the city. We're taking the precaution of doing that right now. So this type of crane, again, is called a crawler crane. It is not the largest type of crane, which is called a tower crane. But the crawler cranes in this city that are registered with Department of Buildings, 376 of them, all potentially active today, but not necessarily active. It all depends on the work site. But we're instructing right now all 376 crawler cranes to be secured. Whatever is the most secure position for them in a wind condition, they've all been ordered to be secured immediately. In addition, the 43 tower cranes, the larger cranes in the city, have all been ordered to go into a secure position immediately. Those are some of the basic updates. Let me also tell you, throughout the morning, I've been working here at the site with First Deputy Mayor Tony Shores, our Commissioner for Emergency Management, Joe Esposito, our Buildings Commissioner, Rick Chandler, from the Fire Department, First Deputy Commissioner Turner and Chief of Department Leonard, from the Police Department, Chief of Department O'Neill, and from Con Ed, Richard Yacco has been the senior Con Ed person on site, and all of those agencies obviously are closely coordinating. I walked the length of the crane. You can see how powerful the damage was, but you can also see again that it was something of a miracle that there wasn't more impact, and thank God that the impact on people wasn't worse, because this is an area that normally would have had a lot of people around it, rush hour in the morning, lower Manhattan. But because, again, the crane was being lowered into the secure position and the construction workers were blocking off the area, the danger to people on the street was lessened, and thank God we didn't have more injuries and we didn't lose more people. Just for your knowledge, we just checked the history. This is the first crane collapse in the city since 2008. A number of precautions were put in place. In fact, there were 2 major crane collapses in 2008. A number of precautions were put in place at that time that have been very effective in stopping this kind of problem. And in fact, those type of precautions were in place today, which is why this crane was being lowered into a secure position. But something went wrong in that process. There's going to be a full investigation to find out what went wrong. And obviously, if it tells us anything that will lead to other changes going forward. Full police investigation underway, full Department of Buildings investigation underway. This is being treated as a scene where we want to get all the facts about what happened here before we can come to further judgments specifically about this incident and about any changes we may want to make as a result. With that, unless any of my colleagues have anything to add, we'll go to your questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Beyond definition, you just described it of nothing since 2008.
Right.
I mean, there really has been an epidemic of crane accidents in the city over the past decade. What can you do to police this?
I'm going to disagree with the term epidemic. There have been some very serious incidents. And again, I think my predecessor took some major steps after 2008 to change the way cranes were handled, and obviously those steps worked, because here we are 8 years later. It's a very painful day. I'm not going to minimize what's happened here. We have to figure out what happened. We have to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. But I would say differently. We've had some real serious issues on construction sites that we are taking major steps to change and to address, but that is different from what we've seen here. This is something that hasn't happened in almost a decade.
All right.
Yeah.
Other people who were hurt, were they injured by falling debris or the actual crane itself, and where were they located?
I want to see if either Chief O'Neill or who has the best sense of where each individual was.
Hit by falling debris.
Here, you go ahead. Chief Leonard.
We had
All right, you've been listening to Mayor Bill de Blasio updating members of the press and the community of this crane that has collapsed in downtown New York City in the Tribeca area, where we know that one man was killed. He was sitting in a parked car. We'd been saying that he might have been perhaps walking on the street. He was actually in a parked car when he was killed. 3 others injured, 1 not seriously, 2 that are in some kind of serious condition. The mayor saying that this crane had been inspected the day before, that means yesterday, by the city. The Department of Buildings had been there on the ground at 6 o'clock in the morning to confirm that the work that was being done was approved. The mayor says that this company, Bay Cranes, had followed all the regulations, and in fact, they were waiting for to move that crane out of harm's way when it collapsed.
Into a secured position. We're going to continue to cover this story and the rest of the day's news. We'll see you at the top of the hour.